In this week's Airs and Spares, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has been seen at last.
And find out exactly what the Duchess of Sussex has planned for International Women's Day. This is Airs and Spares. Hello and welcome to Airs and Spares, the show where we bring you insight and opinion into the lives of two of the most famous royal couples on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you the latest updates on the Duke and Duchess of Sussex right here in California.
And I'm Katie Nicholl, and I'll have all the latest news from the Prince and Princess of Wales from here in the UK.
So, I cannot believe the amount of news that has happened between now and the last time I've talked to you, Katie. Let's talk about Meghan's trip to Texas, if you don't mind, for International Women's Day. We're also going to talk about Prince William's aide, how he played a key role in Harry and Meghan's royal exit. I have a million questions for you about that.
Yeah, you're right, Kinsey. We might have to cast our minds back a few years, but there's plenty to unpick. And as for me, well, the rumours about the Princess of Wales's health continue, but she's finally been spotted out and about in Windsor. And of course, we'll be chatting about Gary Goldsmith, her uncle, who's making his debut in Celebrity Big Brother.
Oh my goodness. I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd see that.
Let's just put Big Brother on hold for a minute and talk about Princess Kate, because the last time we spoke, Kinsey, the internet had gone into some sort of crazy meltdown. You know, this "where is Kate?" Well, of course, we knew exactly where she was. She was at home in Windsor, recovering from clearly major surgery and being looked after by her family and getting herself well again. But she has now been photographed. So over here in the UK, we chose not to publish these pictures because we have very different privacy laws to the US. This was an unauthorized paparazzo picture taken in the grounds of Windsor Great Park. It is an open public park, but the princess has a right to privacy. And so for that reason, the British newspapers haven't published it. We chose not to publish those pictures in Vanity Fair, but other US news websites did. I think I'm correct in saying it broke first of all on the TMZ website. Page 6 have subsequently picked it up. It's a pretty grainy image. I think the princess clearly not aware that she's being photographed. She's wearing dark glasses. She's in the passenger seat of an Audi car being driven by her mother, Carol Middleton. Of course, they're being picked over and poured over. But I think probably the most important thing to say about them is, these were not authorized pictures. The princess has asked that her recovery be kept completely private. But I do think off the back of a week where you and I, Kinsey, were discussing all of those crazy internet rumours that were doing the rounds after William pulled out of his godfather's memorial service and speculation that this might have been about Kate, I think there's probably something quite reassuring for most people that, she's clearly okay. She's well enough to be out in a car being taken for a drive. But, as far as the palace is concerned, these are intrusive pictures. They've not sanctioned them in any way, and you won't be seeing them, as I say, in any UK newspaper.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because some of the rumors, because they're not stopping, circulating here in the States on social media are that these were staged photos. And I'm like, I can't in my wildest dreams imagine the Princess of Wales picking up the phone and staging a paparazzi shot. I've said it a couple of times this week in regards to Kate, but I feel like the Sussexes and their strategies and their media tactics have warped our expectations when it comes to real working royals. The Princess of Wales and even the Prince of Wales, those are not two individuals that are ever going to pick up the phone and stage a paparazzi shot. They have a system, they work with media, and if and when they are ready to, I believe we're going to see the Princess of Wales in a working capacity around Easter. She's going to come out, do the smiles and waves, and it's going to be, the same protocol that we've been used to over the last few years. But I'm glad that you've said that because I noticed that I look at tomorrow's papers today or whatever every night before I go to bed to see what's on the cover of UK papers, and it was all Kate's uncle. And I was surprised that I didn't see that photo. So thank you for telling me that that's because of UK's privacy laws. That's new information to me. But don't forget, TMZ is also the outlet that released the pictures of Prince Harry's crazy Vegas rump. And then there was the debate over in the UK as to whether or not to print those photos. And inevitably, they decided to do that. So TMZ, a lot of royal scoops, surprisingly, for a Hollywood gossip blog.
They've had a lot of royal scoops, including Meghan's father, I think, is probably the big one, wasn't it? That he wouldn't be coming to the wedding. So listen, they've clearly got very good sources there. But I think it is an important distinction to make that, the UK and the UK press is governed by very different privacy laws. I think there will have been a sense of real disappointment over here, particularly at the palace, and particularly within the family itself, the Wales family, that these pictures have been published, because I absolutely would refute any suggestion that they've been staged. Whilst it's reassuring that the princess is in fact well enough to be out and being driven on a perhaps just a little drive to get some fresh air. Some of those rumours about her being in a coma were just unsubstantiated, unfounded, and completely ludicrous. So I suppose it sort of puts all of that in the shade and hopefully makes some people out there on the internet realize how ridiculous they are to be generating this stuff. And, if you believe it, well, here she is, she's being taken out for a drive by her mother. But I think she would have also had a reasonable expectation of privacy. We understand that these pictures were taken not far from Windsor Castle, as you know. They live at Adelaide Cottage in the grounds of Windsor Home Park. So I think she's aware that there's always going to be a risk that if she leaves the family home, the garden, the private grounds, yes, there is a risk that she's always going to be photographed. And I wonder, Kinsey, if perhaps there hadn't been all that speculation last week about Kate, whether she would have been photographed this week, because I think that sort of almost hunt for Kate, where is she, the big Kate whereabouts? You can only imagine how much a photograph like that possibly had sold for. I would have thought a huge amount of money, because it very simply puts that message out there. Well, here she is, surprise, surprise, not far from the family home and clearly recovering. But I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to that first official picture of her, whether that's immediately after Easter, I suspect it'll be probably May, possibly June. There's some speculation that we're going to see her trooping the colour. It's going to be carefully choreographed, carefully stage managed, and very much on Princess Kate's terms. The idea that she's sort of been snapped with dark glasses on, still while she's recovering, is probably not the picture that she wants out there. I think we can safely assume that. So I suppose the big question is, Kinsey, when are we actually going to see Princess Kate next? And according to the Ministry of Defence, that's going to be in June at Trooping the Colour for the King's official birthday parade. According to Kensington Palace, Ministry of Defence may have slightly jumped the gun. A royal attendance isn't confirmed until the palace confirm it themselves. And in this instance, they haven't yet confirmed it. So I think we have to wait a little bit further for word from Kensington Palace. But I think there is every chance that a big set piece event like Trooping the Colour will be a perfect opportunity for Kate to return to public life. That said, it could be some smaller charity engagement or something to do with her early years, perhaps even a little bit before June. I think we have to wait and see.
Agree. Yeah, my biggest concern when I saw the "Where is Kate" trending was that it might inspire someone to do something stupid for internet clout, and this, thankfully, it wasn't to that extent, but obviously it inspired a photographer to just lay in wait, which is, also not very appealing. We did see the Princess of Wales with her mother, Carol Middleton. There are reports over the last few days that the Middletons are not very happy with Catherine's uncle. Can you go into that a little bit for me?
Well, I think probably the Middletons' key concern right now is just making sure that their eldest daughter is well on the road to recovery. And Princess Catherine, we do all here wish you very, very well. But they do have a little bit of another dilemma on their hands, far less important down the pecking order of priorities at the moment, I expect. But Carol's younger brother, Gary Goldsmith. Most people will know exactly who Gary Goldsmith is. He's one of those sort of figures that keeps on popping up. He's the sort of, the skeleton in the closet for the Middletons, the black sheep of the family, and the one who they probably wish would go quiet, but doesn't seem to want to go anywhere quietly. He's now on Celebrity Big Brother. Now, we haven't seen this show for about 6 years now, so there's huge interest in it. And of course, he is one of the top stars in the billing. And, he comes with the promise of talking about the royals. In fact, one of the first questions that he was asked in the opening night was, will Kate be watching? This is the this is the question the nation wants to know the answer to which Gary responded, well, if she is, it'll be from behind the sofa. And I think he's probably right. They're going to sort of be watching it like that and just wondering exactly what sort of reveals he's going to indulge viewers of this reality TV show. He has spoken quite openly about the royal family. He's said before that, you know, Harry's thrown the royals under a bus. He's talked about tea dates with William and Kate, holidays that they've had in Ibiza. I mean, he's wonderfully indiscreet. So he's every tabloid's dream, but possibly the Middletons' nightmare. I know he's always enjoyed a very close relationship with Kate, but this might just test the closeness of that relationship.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm sure you'll recall Meghan Markle's half brother. He's older. Did Australia's Big Brother VIP.
Yeah,
and I know that there was a lot of tongues wagging about that. But at the end of the day, Thomas Markle Jr. did not really have any good intel. So I'm not necessarily too concerned about this. Also, The Sun reporting that Uncle Gary has said very clearly he has no intent to embarrass the Prince and Princess of Wales. So I think that he'll probably behave himself. Will he slip up and, say something harsh about Harry and Meghan? Well, that's certainly good television, but I don't think that his intent is malicious.
No, I agree with you. And I think he's never had anything bad to say about his niece. He's always said what a wonderful person and what a wonderful future queen she will be. And I think, he's clearly very loyal to her. But as we know, the Middletons are a deeply private family. They don't give interviews. They don't go on television. They very much keep themselves to themselves. And so I think the idea that, a senior member of the family, even if they are estranged, going on a reality TV show, it's probably perhaps a little cause for concern, but in the grand scheme of things, and as Kate recovers from clearly serious surgery, I think they've got far more important things to worry about. And I'm sure they won't even be tuning into Channel 4 to watch it. Well, that's my bet, at least.
I 100% agree with you. Now let's jump back over here because the Duchess of Sussex is joining this tech panel here at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. South by Southwest is typically known as an entertainment, movie, and music festival, but over the last decade or so, they've tacked tech onto it. I remember the last time I was there, I met the guy that invented Napster. I was like, it would be like Billy Bob Thornton in the lobby, the hotel lobby, and then the guy that invented Napster, and then Jake Gyllenhaal would walk past you. It's a very exciting festival. But Meghan's going to be featured through the tech portion. She's going to be kind of like, I guess, the highlight at the very end on a Breaking Barriers, Shaping Narratives panel. It's described as how women lead on and off screen. This is happening on International Women's Day. She's going to be featured on the panel with Katie Couric, who is a very famous female journalist here that absolutely did break barriers in the United States. Brooke Shields, who's an amazing, gorgeous, beautiful actress. Those are two of the bigger names on the panel. I think that this is a complete pre-Harry Meghan move. When Meghan was just promoting the TIG and, had that entrepreneurial brand going through her blogging, we saw her sit on panels like Create and Cultivate, which is a female-driven event where people would just come sit and listen to Meghan talk. That happened specifically once, I believe. But she did pursue some of these in-person, sit-down, thought leader type events. And I've had several people reach out to me and say, oh, I never thought I'd see this, but I do. I think this is just Meghan kind of shifting into pre-Harry mode and trying to get back to some of that grassroots marketing.
I think so too. And I think her and Harry, they're quite business savvy. They've negotiated some pretty sizable deals. They both got an interest in tech. Harry as well. He's been to Silicon Valley. The pair of them were sort of lobbied big social media platforms. So there is that interest in tech, I think, both in the sort of business investment side and also in terms of monitoring fake news, keeping an eye on the big sort of social media platforms. And of course, it's International Women's Day, and she is, I think she was described as a feminist on the royal family's website many moons ago. Even if she wasn't, she absolutely is a feminist and counts herself as a feminist. And so for me, her popping up is, I don't know. I think this, like you say, is very much fits in with where she was before she married Harry and where she sees her life going now that she's in California. Yes, you know, the Duchess of Sussex, but very much fitting into the sort of mold of her former life. She seems to be able to now sort of marry that royal title with the work that really matters to her.
I have seen a lot of criticism about this online, and I don't think at all that Meghan will address the royal family in her keynote speech or any sort of panel discussion. But I do wonder if she, because it's with the 19th, Meghan did actually, if you think about it, I know we all associate Meghan's first big sit-down interview with Oprah Winfrey, which absolutely, that was the most sensational. But one of the first times we saw Meghan when she stepped back from the royal family was with the 19th. She apparently reached out to them and said, I see you're doing an online conference. Can I interview you? Now, while she did do the interviewing, of course, the woman from the 19th slipped in there, how are you doing? Meghan answered, it's good to be home. And that's what stole all the headlines. So Meghan, very familiar with this company that she's working with at South by Southwest, obviously a relationship she established a long time ago. And honestly, aside from the cut, which is it's not necessarily mainstream, but it's mainstream enough, the 19th is really one of the only kind of entrepreneurial media outlets that Meghan and Harry have worked with. And that was one of their promises when they stepped away from the royal family. They said, we're going to work with some of these unknown media companies, grassroots media companies, because they weren't pleased with the way the Royal Rota worked, allegedly, at the time.
I think that if she is intended to use that platform for anything other than what it's sort of intended for, to make any sites or comments, or to sort of, I think even if she was deemed to be sort of talking out of turn, I think that would backfire on her quite badly. I mean, when you consider even some of the interviews that Harry's given where he's talked about, you know, his father's health or updates about his relationship with his family, while it makes headlines, ultimately, it always ends up damaging that relationship, which, you know, some family members are trying quite hard to reconcile. So, you know, Meghan's not stupid. And I think she is going to make sure she uses that platform for the message that she wants out there. I mean, whether or not the company themselves put them up there and try to get something else out of her, well, I suppose any good journalist worth their salt would try to do that. But I think Meghan's pretty good in that situation, and it isn't going to want to do anything that draws negative attention to her, because I feel like we're seeing this couple in something of a resurgence. So what they do now, what they say now really matters. They're not going to want to trip up or get criticized at this stage.
Agree. I did notice a couple of the names on the panel when it came to race journalism, and what is the other girl? There was another girl that had written about Meghan Markle around her wedding day. So a part of me wonders if Meghan might go into how she feels unfairly treated by the media or some sort of media scrutiny. I don't know. She might challenge media, but other than that, I agree with you. I think they don't want to fall back into some of that drama. We've actually talked about Megxit a little bit here, and for the first time ever, we are learning that Prince William's former aide, Simon Case, was responsible for drafting a key document about Prince Harry quitting royal duties. And these are according to some recent court papers released. So last week, Prince Harry lost his High Court attempt to have armed police security reinstated when he visits Britain. He wants it every time he visits Britain. Currently, it's on a case-by-case basis. It was a 51-page judgment in the case revealed that details of the Sussex's department from the royal duties. And, you know, I guess my question to you, Katie, is why is this relevant? Is the story that Prince William was more involved than we knew in Harry's exit, so the rift might be, I mean, why is this interesting to the historians or royal watchers?
Well, we knew that William was part of that Sandringham summit, you know, as was his private secretary, Simon Case, at the time. But I think what it really highlights was that message that came down from the Queen and obviously filtered through Charles, William, and ultimately to Harry, that you're either in or you're out of the royal family. You can't have it both ways. And Harry clearly, even at these early stages of Megxit, when it was still very embryonic and the actual final sort of parameters and agreements hadn't been thrashed out at that stage, had obviously foreseen security as being an issue. And you know, I think that's why he has gone off to the Home Office. He's taken it all the way through the high courts and is taking it to the Court of Appeal in the hope of overturning last week's decision, which prevents him from having taxpayer-funded royal security. It obviously was something that was very clearly on the agenda. We now know that through William's private secretary, Simon Case, that he was sort of putting that paper together, which determined that that was going to be something ultimately that Harry wasn't going to benefit from. And I think it shows that, from the start, Harry was fighting a losing battle. He'd come up against the institution. He wanted to change things and change the rules. Well, the rules don't bend for anyone, not even for Prince Harry. Once you leave the royal family, you leave the royal family. And if you remember Kinsey, when he went back to Canada, because that's where they were living at the time, the couple were papped repeatedly. I remember seeing those pictures of Meghan out with Archie in a stroller, on her in a little baby carrier. So, they were papped. That would never have happened, and it didn't happen while they were living in the UK. But of course, they didn't have the protection officers that they had the full support of when they were over here in the UK.
I haven't heard you discuss it, and if you don't feel comfortable saying it, that's fine. But do you feel like Prince Harry should have, the kind of security he's requesting when he comes to the UK? Or do you think it's the case-by-case basis is fair because the likelihood of him getting approved is pretty high?
Look, I think on the case-by-case basis, I suppose if he was still a working member of the royal family, it'd be completely different. If he was coming, even if he was living in America, but coming over here to do occasional duties on behalf of the king or whoever it might be, then yes, in that capacity, I think absolutely he would be entitled and would have a very strong case to have that taxpayer-funded security. But when you've got people like me who pay for the security for the royal family, and while we're never told exactly how much it is because they don't discuss security, it is a huge bill. It's a bill that runs into tens of thousands of pounds every year. And particularly when you see a prince who's negotiated multi-million-pound deals with the likes of Netflix, Spotify, etc., etc. I think the feeling for most people is, well, if he's got that sort of money, he should be covering his own security costs. But of course, Harry's argument is that no one protects quite like the Metropolitan Police and the specialist division that look after royals and VIPs, and that's the service that he's after. So yeah, I think the rule is fair, and I think he cannot benefit from the best part of the world that he's left behind because he is no longer now a working royal.
Katie, I feel like we need a separate section on Heirs and Spares where we just talk about the most ridiculous story that we've heard, recently. I have to pick your brain about this story about the Duchess of Sussex actually reaching out to the Princess of Wales. This is circulating. It started here in the States, like one of those magazines that you see at the grocery store, a tabloid magazine. I believe it was OK. I'm not necessarily on board with this story. I have to ask your opinion. Do you believe that the Duchess of Sussex has been in contact with the Princess of Wales?
I think it's very, very unlikely. I think Kate's focus is clearly on her recovery. It's not to say that they haven't spoken, but I think this idea that, there's some thawing of a relationship and they've been on the phone together, I find that very, very hard to believe. So I would say not true.
I completely agree with you. I think that, the Princess of Wales, if recovery is on the agenda, that is probably the last thing that she wants to deal with, especially with how everything seems to leak and everything seems to come out between the two of them. Spare 2.0, we never know when and if that's coming to fruition. But other than that, I've had such a great time catching up with you today. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me. And if you agree with Katie and I, please let us know in the comments. If you disagree with us, well, it's a great place to let us know too. Make Absolutely. Sure you subscribe to Talk TV on YouTube. And we've had so much fun talking to you today.
We have, and we look forward to seeing you here again this time next week.